So many of you will have now seen the cruel, perverse, demonic spectacle of Hamas parading to cheering crowds with music the dead bodies, the coffins of Kfir Bibas, Ariel Bibas, Shiri Bibas, and Oded Lifshitz. What we saw was a display of what really the Palestinian cause is all about, which is not about human rights and self-determination and a nation state for a unique nation. No, it's just the front of a wider Arab Islamic anti-Semitic coalition that seeks to undermine and oppress and suppress the Jewish people. And that was all confirmed today, and it was confirmed through all the cheering crowds that there is widespread complicity, that Gaza, it's not just that Israel's fighting a war against Hamas, Israel's fighting a war against Gaza. There is widespread support. And I want to show you Ben Shapiro's reaction to what the evil that we've seen.
In other international news, horrifying news, Hamas has now announced, as was suspected, that it would release dead bodies, 4 dead bodies. In exchange for these 4 dead bodies, Israel is going to release all Palestinian women and minors under the age of 19 who were detained in Gaza after October 8th and who, quote unquote, weren't involved in the fighting. But again, those are detentions. When they say under 19, you're talking about 16, 17, 18-year-old people. And recognize that in the Gaza Strip, for Hamas, those are like military-age recruits. Many women are also involved militarily with Hamas. The bodies that are being released include the bodies of Shiri Bibas, who's 33, and her 2 children, Ariel and Kfir, who were 4 years old and 9 months old when they were kidnapped, not by Hamas. Okay, this is important. They were not kidnapped by Hamas. They were kidnapped by Palestinian civilians who joined in on the murder spree of October 7th. The reason this is important is because the great lie that there is a vast gap between the civilian population in the Gaza Strip and Hamas, that has always been a lie. It remains a lie. That does not mean that Israel and any other military power shouldn't attempt to distinguish between members of Hamas and civilians. Israel has expended hundreds of its own soldiers in efforts to do precisely that.
Well, actually, I disagree with Ben. Why should we be... You start a war against us, the vast majority of you support, are complicit with Hamas. So much so that you're taking hostages yourselves, hiding hostages, supporting dead coffins of Israeli and Jewish babies. We saw some resistance in Nazi Germany, Nazi Europe. No resistance here. And yet we should now sacrifice our own lives, our own soldiers' lives, who are just as infinitely precious as every other Jew and Israeli life, to be more precise on your side when you have widespread complicity. I'm not saying we shouldn't focus on dealing with just the military infrastructure that can threaten us, the security threats, but put our people's lives on the lines because you as a society are trying to annihilate us. I actually don't agree with Ben on this. I don't see why that's moral.
Which is why it's achieved such a signally successful kill ratio in terms of terrorists killed to civilians killed in battle.
Which, by the way, the world doesn't seem to care about. They still call Israel a genocider. So we sacrifice our own lives on the line, the world still calls us a genocider. Why do we bother?
With that said, the civilians in the Gaza Strip supported Hamas. They supported the agenda of Hamas for a year. For a year. The bodies of a mother, a toddler, and a baby were held as hostages in the Gaza Strip, and not one Palestinian turned over information to the Israelis. While these people were alive, they were taken alive into Gaza. They were coming out dead. While they were alive, there was no attempt by any Palestinian to achieve their liberty. There was no attempt to shield them from the predations. In fact, they were held by civilians, as we know. Many of the hostages were, in fact, held in civilian homes. Just so you remember who these people are, here is a video of the kidnapping of Shiri Bibas and her toddlers. Okay, this is what Hamas is. This is who the people who celebrate Hamas and have sided with Hamas are. Human trash. The people who do this kind of stuff and who support this kind of stuff. Here's the imagery from October 7th. There's a mother, a terrified mother, who is now dead, who's been murdered, carrying a toddler and a baby. She's being kidnapped by, again, these are people in civilian garb. These are not people in Hamas terrorist garb. Those children are dead. The mother is dead. Anybody who suggests that Israel's war in Gaza is not, in fact, justified is morally blind at best and complicit in evil, much more likely.
Absolutely. That's the key word, complicit. Complicity is what we're seeing all round, okay? It is not just that it's Hamas and then it's the people of Gaza held hostage by Hamas. These were the scenes that we saw. Have a look at these images. Okay, this is the scene we saw in Gaza where the coffins were being moved. This is cheering crowds watching the event where they put the coffins on stage. Children were chasing after the bodies as they are being taken away by the Red Cross, who also have some level of complicity. That's the key thing here. We have been labouring under so many misconceptions. The misconception that Hamas, yes, they're bad, but come on, the Palestinians, they're just oppressed, they just need a state, and if they just have that, it'll be fine. No. We refuse to believe that the Palestinian cause actually is not about nationalism, but it's really just about Jew hatred. Because it strikes us as so outrageous. It seems so outrageous, really? They just can't accept the Jewish people living in their ancient homeland? No, it must be something else. It must be something Israel did. No, it's not. Everything they lament, from being refugees to war to security checkpoints to everything, it is self-inflicted. Intentionally, in order to garner world sympathy and then to wipe out, to seek to undermine and wipe out Israel. If you don't understand that, you don't understand the very basic principles of this conflict.
Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.